everyone, it's Lauren here. I'm just here with a new clay kit for you to take home from the library. And today we're talking about making clay gnomes. Here's an example that I started, and I'll get him fired up and all glossy, and we'll put that example up on the website too. But he's a cute little gnome with his red hat, his nose, and his beard. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna explain to you how to make this. Now in your kit, you should have received a bag with some clay in it, a toothpick, a paintbrush. You're gonna get a little cup with some red underglaze to paint your gnome hat. And you're also gonna get one with a little bit of brown. Now, in order to do these steps, the only thing you're gonna need that is not in your clay kit is vinegar. So you can use apple cider or white vinegar. It's totally fine either way. Now, the first thing you wanna do when you get your clay kit is take out your piece of clay. And we are gonna be using our hands to kind of squish this piece of clay out. So the thing about clay is the more we handle it, the more we use it with our hands, the more it dries out. So when you have your clay, you don't really want to fold it or anything. We're just trying to squeeze it, and I'm actually trying to make a triangle shape with my hands, okay? So kind of squeezing out that side, squeezing out down here. I just kind of want a loose triangle shape. And the whole time I'm squeezing this too, I'm trying to get the same consistency the whole way through of like my pinky finger. I don't want it much thicker than that. And I don't want it too much thinner either because we don't want it to like fall over. So here is my loose triangle. Can you see that? It's not super a triangle, but like one side, another side, and the bottom. Now what I'm gonna do is take this now that I've squished it out, and I'm gonna kind of fold two of the sides together. Can you see how that's kind of coming in together? And what I need to do is paint vinegar because I'm gonna join those two pieces together. Now you can use your paintbrush or you can use your finger, it doesn't matter. So I'm painting this down. And the reason I use vinegar is because as vinegar dries, it eats into the clay. It kind of eats away at it. So as it dries, it fuses it together really tight. I love it. So I painted some vinegar on those two sides. I'm gonna use my fingers, which are your best tool ever. And I'm just pinching and squeezing those two sides together, okay? It's not pretty, but it's okay. We're gonna do some more to it. So now that I've pinched it together, I'm gonna use my finger again and I'm gonna smooth down that seam, just with my finger. Kind of smoothing so I don't see any of the pinch marks. I don't see any lines. Your finger really is your best tool for clay. I'm actually just even gonna go around my whole piece if I want to, and just make sure it looks really, really smooth. Even on the top here. Okay. So now I can also open it up to where that bottom was. See, it's kind of an opening there, which is great because it's hollow. It'll dry faster and it'll be more protected in the kiln. Okay, so now I'm looking at where these two join together. Now in your kit, we want to make this bottom flat because right now it's kind of curvy. In your kit, you have your toothpick. And what I'm going to do is just take that and run it along the bottom to make a nice flat line going all the way around. Whoops, I broke my toothpick. That's okay. This is all we're using it for. So if yours breaks, you can still use another side and then we'll just throw them away. So I cut that off. Here's my extra that I cut off. Here's my bottom. You can see it's a lot flatter now. I'm gonna smooth with my fingers where those two join. And I can even kind of go inside and smooth with my finger too. So I wanna make sure this whole thing is nice and smooth before I begin my next steps. And now this will sit really nice on a table, okay? So I can pinch from the inside too, if it feels like it's a little thick in some areas. But this is nice. And see how it's kind of curving at the top? Perfect. Gnome's hats curve. So it's gonna look great. So now we have our piece. It'll sit flat on the table. The next step is to take that extra clay that we got. And we want to take a piece off of this extra clay that's a little bit smaller than a marble. I'm just going to roll it between my palms. Just want to make a good circle. This is going to be my gnome's nose. Okay, so we'll set this aside for right now. But right now we gotta make the rim of his hat. So to do that, you're gonna take your extra clay. And before we start rolling out a really thin coil, what I like to do is prep my clay. So I like to get it into that shape as much as possible so I don't have to do as much rolling. So I'm just gonna squeeze that between my fingers, right, in my hands. And it's kind of elongating it, making it a little bit thinner, so it'll be less rolling that I have to do on my surface. Okay, so that's kind of what I got. Now I'm gonna bring the camera down so you can see how I roll this out. Now when I roll, I'm pressing with this part of my fingers, right? Where my fingers and my palms kind of join together. That's where I think it's the easiest to make it most consistent the whole way through. So let me bring my camera down so you can see. Okay, so I'm spreading my fingers kind of out and I'm rolling. That noise you hear is my cat. I apologize. All right, so I'm rolling this coil out. Okay, and I'm trying to get the consistency a little bit thicker than my paintbrush stem, all right, that I'm gonna be using. So this is pretty good to me. Let me bring you back up. Get you such a white out here. Perfect. All right, so I have this piece. I have my kind of almost like a pyramid shape, right? This top to my gnome. And I'm gonna take this, I wanna connect the coil to this. So in order to connect, I'm using some of my vinegar. It's gonna paint down my coil. I always wanna use vinegar if I'm ever joining pieces of clay together. Okay, so I have that painted. And then I'm gonna go up about 1/2 inch from the bottom. 1/2 inch to 1 inch is okay. And I'm gonna bring this coil around. And mine's gonna overlap, and that's okay. I'm just gonna press my piece where they're gonna overlap, and I'm gonna kind of pinch it off. Okay, so now I have this coil. I'm gonna reach my hand inside and just kind of gently press along this whole thing so I know it's kind of fusing to that other clay really good. Okay, so now I have that shape that we made for the gnome, and I have this coil around it, and you're probably like, why? This is gonna be the bottom of our hat. So we're gonna use our trusty hand tool, and we're gonna take it along this rim, just going upward. We're gonna push and smooth, push and smooth. So we wanna do this the whole way around. And this is gonna create the illusion that we have this hat on top of it. It's pretty cool. So I'm pushing and I'm smoothing as I'm going up. This will make his good little gnome hat. Almost done here. Perfect. So here's his tiny little hat. Yay! So we have his hat. Now we want to make the texture for his beard. So as you can see here, it just looks like little impressions that I put in. And what I did is took the end of my paintbrush and I just kind of dragged it on the bottom. So it made kind of like a little dotted drag texture. And I did that along the whole bottom to be his beard and his hair. Okay, so all I'm doing is just gently pressing into the clay and pulling downward as I do it. Okay. And I want to do that around my whole gnome to give him some nice texture. Let's see. And now is the last part for our joining. I'm going to take that little circle that I made earlier, and I need to add some vinegar to it where I'm going to join it. Okay. And then I'm gonna stick it onto my piece at the bottom of the hat, and I'm gonna wiggle, and there you have it. So now you wanna put your initials on the inside of the bottom because that's important. And then what you're gonna be doing, you probably wanna let this sit out for a night. Don't even cover it, nothing. Let it sit there. And then the next day, you're gonna be taking your underglaze paint and you wanna make his hat red. So I would do 2 to 3 coats of red paint on this hat. And then for his nose, I gave you guys some brown. So you could either just use the straight brown. You can kind of pick which tone you want his nose color to be. So you can keep it brown if you want to. If you want to make it a little bit lighter, you can just add some water to it. Or another thing you can do is take a teeny bit of clay, just a teeny like little beads worth. And if you put it in there and you kind of mix and mash it together, it'll kind of make a lighter, like tannish tone. So you can do it a couple different ways. And then you'll just go in again the day after and you'll want to just paint over those parts. We're going to leave the beard and the hair plain because when this clay fires, it comes out a nice bright white. So it'll look like he has a white beard with a nice red hat and then a sweet little nose. And again, make sure your names or initial are on the bottom and then we'll get them back to you. So he'll be all shiny when it's done. I hope you all enjoyed this a whole lot. I can't wait to see these getting fired and happy clay making. Bye everybody.